everybody. We're really glad to see you. We've got a good group here today, and you're all excited to learn more about either starting stores or making them even more successful. We're glad to have you here, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom Worthington, who will introduce our presenters.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I am Tom Worthington. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm on the board of the Coalition of Refuge Friends and Advocates, and I'm also on the board of the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge's Friends Group. And I retired after about a 38 career at the Fish and Wildlife Service, but I've been involved in stores from the very first day I worked for the Fish and Wildlife Service at Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. We had a small bookstore outlet in our visitor center, and it was operated by Eastern National Parks and Monuments Association. And I think we were one of the very first refuges to have a cooperative association sales outlet. We didn't sell very many books, and I don't think we got any money back from Eastern National, but it was a good experience. And I've been familiar with friends groups and the importance of nature stores to friends groups and to refuges for my entire career. We're very fortunate today to have three panelists with a lot of expertise and operating nature stores. They will each be addressing a different aspect of nature store management, starting with how to get started, going on to operating and managing a very successful store, and then with how to run an online sales outlet. Each speaker will have about 10 to 15 minutes to do their presentation. And if you have questions that come up while a speaker is speaking, go ahead and put that in the chat box. You should be familiar how that works. We've got a couple of people, Joan and Cheryl, will be monitoring the chat questions. And at the end of each speaker's little spiel, they'll have a chance to ask those questions of them. And then at the very end, we should have a good 10 minutes plus minutes. If you have a question that hasn't been answered yet to any one of the panelists, we'll have a chance to answer those questions. So our first speaker today is going to be Kathleen McKinstry. She's the store manager of one of our newest national wildlife refuges, the Valle de Oro Refuge down near Albuquerque, New Mexico. Kathleen fell into a job in retail. I would say fell. She was surprised to find herself in a job in retail after she was taking her daughter shopping at a Michael's craft store and noticed that they had a help wanted sign because Michael's is opening up a new store and she needed a little bit of work. And before she knew it, she was the lead cashier in a full-time job at Michael's. She went on and managed several clothing stores after that. And this retail experience was very helpful to her when the board, the Valle de Oro Friends Group board, realized they were going to or wanted to start a nature store. And Kathleen fit the bill. And so she organized and got their store set up. And it opened the May of 2022. She'll talk about her experience getting a sales outlet started. Following Kathleen will be Anne-Marie Wildman, who is the executive director of the J.N. Ding Darling Wildlife Society down in Sanibel, Florida. Anne-Marie was a fine arts manager, gallery manager, and owner for over 20 years, and she and her husband both have been on the board of the Ding Darling Wildlife Society for many years. She became the store's manager and then eventually, more recently, became the executive director of the Ding Darling Wildlife Society, one of our most robust friends groups in the country. Anne-Marie is going to speak about how to manage a successful sales operation. And then our final presenter will be Julia Hinca from the Friends of Ottawa Refuge in Ohio. Julia is the manager of the Rookery Nature Store at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge on the Lake Erie in Ohio. She will talk about online sales, what it takes to do an online merchandising, and some of the particular complications or the benefits of doing that. So each person, as I said, will have about 10 or 15 minutes to speak. And at the very end, we'll have time for some questions and answers. So put your questions in the chat box. And with that, Kathleen, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk about getting started.
Okay. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're all here as well. I was told about this job of running a nature store, but I didn't realize it in the beginning that there was no nature store yet. Our refuge is an urban refuge, and it used to be a dairy farm. So they were somewhat running a store out of the house that the people lived in while they were working at the dairy farm. And it's an old house, and it's the windows don't close real well, and when the winds blow, we wind up with sand all over everything. So I went into this house, and there was a lot of merchandise that was in boxes, and so I started doing inventory of everything, and there was no the store manager had been gone for a while, and the executive director had been gone for a while. So it's basically me and the president of the Friends trying to figure this all out. And this was during the end of COVID. So the welcome center was new welcome center was finally completed, but we weren't able to move in for a while because of COVID. And then we could only move in like 3 people could work at one time in the entire building or something. So it was very tricky, but we finally got all the merchandise moved down to the store, and then we had to enter every item that we had in inventory in the system, and we use Shopify. And so that was a bit consuming because I had to enter all the information about each item and then take a picture of it and then get that picture put into the system, and very time consuming. And we had a good bit of merchandise, but not near enough to fill the store. So once we got everything into the system, then we needed to place it in the store. And that was a trial and error thing as to what works here and what works there. And we only had one area where there were low shelves, and we wanted to put the children's things in that area so they could reach like the stuffed animals and things. And so we just tried to give it a lot of thought as to where we wanted things to be. And not that they necessarily stayed there, but that's where it started. And so we then, like Tom said, we opened in May, and it was definitely a trial and error situation. I'd never started a store from zero. And when I first started working, the president told me we need to fill out a timesheet for me. And I said, well, where's the timesheet? And he's like, well, you'll have to create it. And so we had no forms for the store, nothing. So I had to create the form to open the store, to close the store, things to remember to do, and all the steps that went into opening the store or closing the store, or working with the register. And we use an iPad for our register. And so it was just a time of really learning, but also, I would create a form, and then it wouldn't be quite right. So we'd have to make some changes on it because things were different. And so it was definitely trial and error. And all the way it was trial and error as to what would sell, what kind of customers we would have. And even though our refuge is 9 miles away from Albuquerque, it's still not a place that people would think of, oh, I need to buy a birthday present, so I'm going to go to the nature store, which I wish they did, but they don't. And so what really helps our store stay busy is when they have events on the refuge. And we have a beautiful new visitor center, and a couple of different rooms where people can have events. And so anytime people have events there, and basically it's free for them because the refuge can't charge them money. And then they can make a donation to the Friends if they want to. And so we have a lot of people come and have different conferences or workshops or whatever there at the refuge. And that really pushes our sales because they buy stuff. And so we started out opening between Tuesday and Saturday from 10 to 4. And that's pretty much where we still are. And I only work part-time. I work 28 hours a week. So I work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which are the busier days. And we're always looking for volunteers. Everybody I talk to, I ask them if they would like to volunteer in the store, because we have really good volunteers, but we don't have enough volunteers. And so that's definitely something that is something we're always thinking about and trying to work with. And we have a listing out on several different places to bring in volunteers. And one of them is through Albuquerque, senior citizens. They have a program where if people volunteer and they sign up and list the hours that they volunteered, they can earn up to $25 a month for gas. So that's an incentive for people to, if they're seniors, to sign up with them, come volunteer, and then part of their gas is reimbursed. So that's a real plus for us. And there's a couple other organizations we work through trying to get volunteers. And of course, the Refuge is trying to get volunteers too. So we kind of, I say they steal my volunteers, but there are people that want to work outdoors and pull weeds. And then there's people that want to work in the store. So we find a place for them. And that's one thing that is important. The volunteers, they don't all necessarily work in the store. I have one excellent volunteer, and she does not want to work in the store, but she does research for me on items we might want to carry in the store. So she does a lot of work in that regard, but not necessarily in the store. And so it's it's an ongoing thing trying to get volunteers. And I hope sometime we have a program concentrated on just volunteers, and what other people are doing that is working would be great. And so that's pretty much it. Now the store is finally full. It looks really good. People compliment us on it at all times. And we don't put anything in the store that isn't relevant to the Refuge. Like we wouldn't have stuffed animal elephants or something. We only have in the store what could be found on the Refuge. And so that's fun, but some people think they want other things. Customers want something different, but we explain to them that we don't carry things like that. So that's pretty much it for me. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. And Anne Marie is next. So Anne Marie.
Kathleen, there are some questions in the chat, and some of these maybe are for all of you as we go along. So Jim wants to know more information about where to buy the merchandise, and also information on where to buy different merchandise displays.
Right.
So rather than giving us a list, do you have a list, or do you have a place where people can go to find that information?
I don't really have a list where I get information. Sometimes it's just like having a volunteer do some research. We were looking for fans because it was so hot. And so my volunteer looks around, checks different companies, gets prices, find out what we're trying very hard not to order anything from China. And that's really hard because we want inexpensive things in the store for kids, because we do have school groups that come through and we want them to be able to afford to buy stuff. And so we need inexpensive things, but at the same time, we don't want them from China. So we are particular about where we get them. And so one local company, we try and use local companies. One local company we may want to work with them, but they get all their stuff from China. So it's coming from China anyway, even they're a local vendor. But I think what helped me get started is I contacted the store manager of a couple other nature stores and said, hey, what vendors do you use? And Wild Republic is one that we use for stuffed animals, and they're really good. And there's another company that does finger puppets, and they're called Folkmanis, Folkmanis, and they have wonderful finger puppets, but they're a little more pricey. And so I think that you just find out who, and there's a lot of companies that have a minimum order of say $500 or something, which is not realistic for a little store. So we have to work with people that are willing to do a smaller minimum order. And so it takes time to get vendors signed up and work with them and figure out who's not charging a fortune for shipping and all of these things. So hopefully that answered the question partly.
Let's take just a few more questions and then move on to Anne-Marie. Did you have to purchase shelving and display cases, or did the Refuge provide those?
They came with the store, the shelving did.
Okay.
We had to buy though the like the hooks and everything for the walls. And so we've gone to different places to get those. We've gone to businesses that are going out of business and they're selling all their fixtures and everything. And so we got a lot of the hooks. Our store is slat wall, so they're hooks for slat walls. And then also I've gone to, and I don't know if every city has these, but the Restore that the Habitat for Humanity has, and they had hooks and stuff. And I did get one fixture from them. It was a wooden fixture that had shelves in it. And so I did get one from them. It's small, and we keep bandanas on it. And so that's helpful. But otherwise, the fixtures came with the store. I'm not sure if the Refuge purchased them or we did, but they came with the store.
Okay, I'm going to skip a question because I know we need to get on to our next presenter, but one question specific to you is, who do you partner with for the gas coupon, for the gas money?
Do we partner with them?
Who do you partner with?
As far as the gas coupons goes, that's through the city of Albuquerque. That's a program they have for senior citizens. So we don't have any part of that other than helping our volunteers get signed up for the program.
Okay. Anne-Marie, let's move on to you, and we'll take some more questions later in the presentation.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm Anne-Marie Wildman with the Ding Darling Wildlife Society. We're the friends group for the JN Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge here on Sanibel Island. We're very fortunate because we do have a full-time paid manager and one part-time supervisor, and we've actually had more employees. As many of you may know, we got hit really badly by a Cat 5 storm almost 2 years ago to the day right now. And so we're kind of recovering from that. At that time, we had 2 stores and an online store. But I think a lot of the things that we do, scaled down or scaled up for the various locations that you have, will work. Most important are our volunteers. And repeatedly, I just have to tell you, you have to thank them. Make it something they want to do, something they want to tell their friends to come and join them and let them have fun. Do some little lunches for them throughout the year. We do a special luncheon for every volunteer, but we try to put things on for our store volunteers also. First of all, they're our biggest clients because they see things and fall in love with them. And one of the best things you can do for your volunteers is to train them. When you get new products in the store, make sure that they're familiar with how it works, how it zips, how many pockets, so that they're not going out on the floor feeling like they don't know what's going on with a product when someone asks them. So give them that knowledge, because that's going to be key. And before you know it, they'll be buying it, they'll be wearing it in the store, and then when they wear it, they sell it. Next important point is going to be your point of sale. We use Shopify, and we love it. It does a lot of our things for us. It calculates shipping for online store, all kinds of things that it does. They've got a nonprofit rate, but whatever one you select, do look through many different point of sale offerings and see what they can do and offer you the best. That was good for our size business. Let's see. I was asked a question about how we select good vendors. And we've got many good vendors, but really it's a matter of creating a relationship with them. They will bend over backwards. They'll let you know when all the sales are coming up. Anytime there's like the Atlanta Mart or there's shows in Las Vegas, all around those points, they have their specials on where they'll give you free shipping or 10% off with the purchase of so much. So find out when those sales are on and they'll keep you informed. Have them send you samples. I ask for samples all the time. I ask for a better price. If they tell me it's $10, I ask them if they can do $9, and usually we'll settle about 9.25. So I never hesitate to ask them for a better opportunity. Ask them to sponsor any events that you have, throw in a few t-shirts, a few hats. You can mention their name at the events. I mean, just keep asking them for something, and they love to have their name put out there as well. So whatever you can do to get your merchandise at a really good rate. When you get your sample, some people like to give them to volunteers as a thank you, but I really like to use it. So I always get it in my size. I crumple it, I wash it, I wear it, I know where the pockets are, and then I know if I want to bring it into the store or if I don't. So, use your samples and ask for free samples. Make sure that all your products do fall into the conservation, recycling, wildlife categories that are in the Refuge guidelines. That's really important. And then when you're in the store, make sure your guests and your shoppers know that everything, 100% of the profits do come right back to your Refuge. Signs up. You can't tell them enough times. Put signs by the cash, put signs throughout the store. We have a huge banner in the store. We have a door that's out wrapped and reminds people that the money comes right back to the Refuge, because most times they've been out birding and they come back in and they look for a little item, and then they say, okay, I'll take 3 or 4 more because I know I'm shopping for good. So those are all important things to just keep reminding people of that. With your volunteers too, when they can, talk up other products, people are checking out, ask them if they've seen these binocular cases or these new shirts that just came in, and have them talk about the products, because there's add-on sales all the time from that point of view. Your Wi-Fi, if you do use a point of sale like Shopify or something, make sure you get a dedicated line. That's going to be really important for you, for the security of your credit cards, for just keeping the line up and running all the time. And we're on a barrier island. We lose the internet if it rains outside, so we lose it a lot, but we never lose the Wi-Fi, or rarely lose the Wi-Fi on that dedicated line. Bestsellers was another question. Apparel, hats. Make sure that everything is logoed, put your name on everything, have cute sayings, and then make it unique. Make sure that your guests aren't going down the street and finding the exact same thing, except that it says Ding Darling on the corner of it, but they find the same thing at a store down the street. So redesign or create new designs, have contests with schools to make a design. Anything that's going to make your pieces really unique, and then your presentation needs to be excellent also. When your volunteers, and this is something you can do in the training, when your volunteers are packaging something, have them wrap it nicely in tissue and put it in a bag, or just take that little extra care and time to put a little wrap around it or something like that, and keep all of those products as eco-friendly as you can also, so that we're staying away from all the plastics. We have no plastic bags. Try to do away with as much bubble wrap as we can. And if we do have to use bubble wrap, we try to reuse it, and stick a little note in and say, please reuse this bubble wrap. We try to reuse all of our products. Just keep the conservation message going, even if it's one person at a time in their shopping bag. And then with vendors, an important thing that I always do is I always ask for zip code protection at least. I always push it a little further than that, but I usually get zip code protection. And that is that you don't want to have the person down the street. You come up with a fabulous product that you find either Atlanta, or you have somebody researching it for you, and you find a wonderful product. And people do come in and shop you. I go shop other people when I'm traveling too, and see what they're selling. And so someone down the street will find it and have something just slightly different. So get zip code protection from all of your vendors so that they can't sell to other people right in your immediate area. You have that unique opportunity to sell those items to your guests. Think outside the box also. We've done a number of things that really don't cost you anything to bring into the store once you have your store up and running. I know it's a little more difficult, but for example, I'm wearing a necklace. I know it's hard to see, but our jeweler designed it. And so they just created them as we sell them. So we have one sample, and then we can sell 10 or 15 pieces off of that. And same thing, if someone makes a donation, we've had a number of people make donations to us, sell those items, and make people aware that you will accept donations of fine art or items like that, and they'll cost you nothing, and you can resell them and make a profit, a total profit for your store. I think that's about all I have at the moment, unless anybody has any questions. No? Okay, we can move on then, I guess, to Julia or to Tom.
Okay, I did see some questions come through, Cheryl.
There are a bunch of questions. I think they're more generic, though. I didn't want to cut into the time for the presenters. So okay. I'm trying to look for ones that are specific to each presenter, and then we'll leave the others for the end, if that is okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. Julia, let's talk about online sales.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia. I work for the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. I am a paid employee. I work part-time except during our busy season during spring migration, and I pretty much live at the refuge. But try not to be there too often because we have very capable volunteers that usually run our store for us. I started only 4.5 years ago, and that happened to be just before the pandemic. And one of the things when I was brought on was a very long-term goal of creating an online store. And that kind of got pushed to my sole focus as a nature store manager because the building was closed for so long. So I don't have that kind of experience like Kathleen had in retail. I just figured it out as I went along. I brought a lot of things home in the beginning since the visitor center was closed, and just added things little by little. I didn't try to do everything at once. It was just chipping away at some of the best sellers, things we had a big, that were taking up a lot of space. Let's try and sell these things. And it was pretty much just a learn as you go. As I started to do that, I used Square just because I was familiar with it already, and a lot of local businesses in our area use Square. So I thought that would be something familiar if our volunteers saw it or used it anywhere else, interacted with it, as well as visitors, that they would feel comfortable. We ended up switching our whole point of sale system to Square. So it's very easy everything's integrated. Inventory, our website, it's all in one place. I think that kind of helps just to make it easier for everyone. Like I said, Square, the website itself is right in Square. I don't have to do a website building. Our executive director with our website, there's a lot more that goes into piecing together the pictures and the words, and there's nothing like that behind the scenes with our website. It's just, you put things in categories, you add the item, and it kind of populates itself. You can change some things around if you want. I try not to do too much of that because then it requires more updating. You can set it for your best-selling items will populate. So then as people are buying things, it's kind of updating that for you, which is kind of nice because then it just leaves it more hands-off and it's not taking a lot of your time. We do sometimes have a part-time store clerk during our busy season, and that position has been really helpful, updating our website, helping me with that. The volunteers don't help too much with the online store part of that. although they're invaluable with everything else they do in the store. It could totally be run by volunteers, though. I know there's a lot of refuges that don't have paid staff. And I think if you just had a person or two that were willing to try it, you could absolutely have a volunteer run it. You don't have to have paid staff to be able to have an online store. So I think that's really important that people realize that. And if you can use a smartphone, you can try to do your online store too. It's set up pretty easy now, where you don't have to know a lot about websites and anything like that. If you can use a smartphone, you can probably set up an online store. The volunteers do help fulfill orders. So because our system's all in one, our register will pop out a receipt when there's an order, and the volunteers that are behind the desk can go pull those items aside, and they leave it on my desk if it's for shipping, or they just put it in a bag if it's for pickup. So they do help out with that. It just keeps our inventory, you know, if somebody buys something online, it's gone. That way somebody else can't buy it, and it keeps everything kind of seamless. Fulfilling orders, our visitor center is open Wednesday through Sunday right now. So orders can come in anytime. I'd leave a little disclaimer on our website and an email that just reminds them, you know, we're run by volunteers, and these are when our visitor center is open. Give us 3 to 5 days to ship your item. I've never had anyone upset that it might take a little bit of time. I think they understand that, you know, we're not Amazon Prime and they're going to get it delivered by the morning. They're very patient, and I've never had an issue with it taking a little longer than some other places can do nowadays. As far as shipping, I think in the beginning, that was one of the biggest learning curves for me. I didn't do a whole lot of shipping in my everyday life, so I had to learn that pretty quick. I think it's very important to have a good relationship with your local post office. I found one that they weren't as willing to help me, so I just went to a different place on my way home, and I had a much better time asking questions and having them help me with things like that. Our website does automatically calculate shipping costs based on weight. So when we add items in, we plug in a weight, a guess, you know, that's a pound, that's maybe a few ounces. And that way, when orders are shipped, it just has a basic weight. It's kind of rounded. You don't have to be super specific with it. And that just helps determine a shipping cost. I've never had a really big issue with that. It's usually a little above what we charge, is usually maybe a little above. It covers every once in a while when the order does cost more to ship. That only usually happens if it's a state that's kind of far away. The shipping cost ends up being a little more than the system calculates, but for the most part, that it works out really well, and it does it all on its own. Again, with sales tax, every county in our state's different, every state is different, and Square set up so that it automatically calculates whatever that sales tax is and charges the person accordingly. Back to the post office, though, I try my best to recycle boxes that we have. It saves on, you know, shipping costs. It is nice to have a stash of, I use a lot of small bubble wrap bags or big plastic kind of bags that seal on their own. And we got them in a nice fun teal color that match our friends group. And it's just nice to have a stash of those. A lot of small items fit really good in those. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can get those even on Amazon. And that way you have your own little shipping supplies. You can do get a lot of free shipping supplies from USPS. If you go to their website, you can order a bunch of boxes and they'll drop them off to you if you need a lot. If your local post office doesn't have those on hand, I would never use the flat rate. It's never a good deal. Don't do it. The post office I tried at first kept throwing me these flat rate boxes, and I'm like, this is way too expensive. You want to get the priority and ship it on your own that way. Don't ever do the flat rate. There are some items that I just don't ship, so I don't have them show up on the website. It's a little thing I can toggle off. It's very easy on the back end. It's not a whole lot of things, but it's things that are maybe shaped funny that would just take a really weird box, really delicate things. there's not a whole lot of items, but if it's not worth the hassle, just don't put it on your online store. Or you could show it and just put this items for pickup only. But some things just aren't worth the hassle, and it's okay to not have those on there for shipping. Let's see what my other questions were. Our website does have a nice way where I can do online only sales. In coupons, I think that's the biggest way, the best way to get sales to come in through our online store is through a coupon. You send an email out with a coupon and people respond to that, especially around the holidays. That's when we'll push it more. I don't like to bug people. Their inboxes are full of all sorts of kind of ads, so I don't like to ask all the time. But around the holidays, people are looking for an easy way to get gifts and ship gifts. And that's the best time to send out an email or two with the coupon code for free shipping over 50, or, whatever it might be that's worth it for you. That really does drive sales. And around the holidays is, I think, the best time to try that. I think I got everything here. I wanted to leave you with my favorite quote right now that applies to my personal life, but I hope it helps anyone who is struggling with the decision to try this or not. No one knows what they're doing, but some people do it anyway. That's what applied to me. I didn't know what I was doing. I did it anyway, and here I am telling other people how to do it. So you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be willing to try it. Start with a couple of your best-selling items. Try it on your website. See if you can sell a few things and build from there. You don't have to have your whole store online. Just try a few things and get it. I think even if you're not making a ton of money, you're showing people what you have to offer. So they might be like, oh, you know what? I think they have some cute things. Let's stop in the store and see what we might be able to get. Or, oh, I think they do sell nature, or they sell nature-related books or field guides. Next time we're there hiking, we should stop in and maybe pick something up. It just helps visibility-wise to get out there what you have to offer. And I found some fun reports when I was preparing for this. And I was even blown away how many people visit our store. It's a few thousand every month. That doesn't mean people are buying things like that. I'm not getting thousands of orders, but that means people are checking it out. So they know when we get new shirts and they pop up, they're looking what we might have to offer. They're kind of doing their window shopping online and yet still coming in, when they purchase it. And I did miss one question. We ship all over the country. So it's not a ton of sales every week or every month, but we've shipped to almost every state, especially in the continental US. So people are finding our store, even if they don't know about Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge or our friends group. They might be searching. Last week, I sold an ant plush to somebody in New Jersey. I don't think they were looking at Ottawa for Ottawa. They just wanted an ant plush and plugged it in and somehow found our store. And that's kind of neat. I always get a kick out of the ones that are a really random item in a different state. That just means somebody was online looking for something and they found you. And, you never know. Maybe then they went to your friends group homepage, or you just never know. It's a great way to introduce people to your refuge too. So go ahead and try it.
Okay, thanks, Julia. We have a lot of questions that have come in, so I'm going to go through them and we'll get to as many as possible. Those of you who are asking for lists of suppliers, go to the chat, because several people have volunteered information about wholesalers, people that they buy from. So you'll find some lists there. We probably won't take time to list them separately, but if you look there, you'll find some good ideas of places where you can purchase your products. So Tom wanted to know, was it hard? This one is for you, Kathleen. Was it hard to get wholesale accounts with suppliers as a new store?
Sorry, I had my volume off. No, not really, but you have to set up an account with them, and that is a little time consuming. And then, some of them will do net 30 and a net 90 and days, and that's good. Some of them won't do that. Some of them, like one, will let you pay with a credit card, but they charge you 3%. And so it takes time to just, like Julie said, get to know the vendors and get to know their policies, and on each of the folders that I have for each vendor, on the inside cover, I write down what the particulars are. I have to have a $200 minimum. If I get $300, I don't have to pay shipping and things like that. So when I open their folder and decide to order from them, I know what it is they want. And it is time consuming to begin with. One thing about local vendors, a lot of times because they're local and they're small, they are willing to do just a small order. And so they don't mind, they don't expect you to do a $300 order or whatever. And then also you can get things quickly from a local vendor. So sometimes they're easier to work with because of that.
Thank you. Okay, this is a question from Jim. Does your refuge count volunteer hours when you're working at home on the computer? I don't know about that. My response to that is our refuge doesn't count hours that are related to the store, because that's strictly a friend's volunteer position situation. So I know for us that they don't count anything that it relates to the store. Anybody have a different response?
Ding darling, we do count Nature Store, and we award for it annually. Even if someone's working from home, as long as it's documented, they can fill in their hours.
And that's your friends group that does that?
It's done through the refuge. There is a sign-in sheet, and regardless of whether you're a refuge or a nature store.
Okay, thank you. What are your best-selling categories? Everybody, each one of you, give me a couple of good categories other than clothing and books. Kathleen, what are your best sellers?
Okay, hats. We have hats with animals embroidered on the front, and then we have our name on the back. And so those are popular. And then bandanas. We sell a good bit of bandanas.
Okay, great. Julia, how about you? What are your best sellers?
I know I'm not allowed to say clothing, but I mean, t-shirts really are some of our best selling items. We have a lot of local. I saw a few questions in the chat about it too. I have a few local artists that we use, and they create some nice one-of-a-kind pieces like stained glass. Our photo note cards. I have 3 different people who they take photos at the refuge and make their own note cards and sell them to us. Those sell really, really well. It's more the unique items, I think, in person that people pick up. And it's really nice when you have it marked down there that it's from a local artist somewhere in your state or nearby. That seems to make a big difference too. Those are always great selling items.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, how about you? What are your best sellers?
I would agree. It's apparel, plush toys, things like that, but for volume. But for revenue generating, it's certainly the art pieces, the unique pieces, such as Julia mentioned.
Great, thank you. Kathy wants to know, how do you interface with the refuge on the items carried in your store?
Ours is a little complicated, and it might be that way at every refuge, but the refuge manager has to approve everything we want to order. So we send her a form that's saying what we want to order, what we're going to pay for it, what we're going to charge people for it, and and she has to approve it. And so she's really busy. So she has up to 2 weeks to get that back to me. And sometimes that doesn't happen because she is busy. And so it's quite a long process to get those items approved and then hear back from her so that I can order them.
Okay, Julia or Anne-Marie, any comments on that?
We basically order as long as we stay within the guidelines, which we really do. We have a committee that looks at new products coming into the store, and one of them is a ranger. So that's how we do.
I'd say we have a little more freedom. I mean, our board gives us a budget for the year, and as long as we stick within that, we have a little more freedom. And we just try and stick within those guidelines to make sure it's educational. You know, good made products, things like that, that they're not outside too far of those guidelines, and we stick to that.
Okay, thanks, Julia. There are several questions, requests for vendor lists in the chat, and as I said, rather than trying to list them all, if anybody has vendor lists that they're willing to share or recommended vendors, please put them in the chat. Because you're on the webinar today, you will get the chat in the materials that are sent to you after the presentation. It'll probably be a day or two because Eden's busy with the awards dinner tonight, but she'll get that out to you quickly.
Cheryl, we can also,
yes.
Once we get that together, we remember the recording of this and the materials will be on the coalition's website in the resource center, and we'll make sure that those vendor lists are in there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, I'm skipping the list of where we get vendors, where we get materials. Best sellers, we've talked about that. Suggestion was try Google search for retired senior volunteer program near you. We have a partnership option through our local office on aging. That's from Amy at Friends of Ottawa. Karen asked, is there any way for Refuge Friends groups to consolidate our orders in such a way that bulk buys might be possible so that small shops could purchase items that require a large volume minimum purchase? One issue would be costs involved with redistribution of consolidated buys though. Any ideas for working with partners or vendors on vendor associations? Anybody have any ideas on that? Julia?
My comment for that would be if something's requiring you too big of a minimum order, then just don't do it. Find somebody else. There's my favorite website I'll share with all of you, and this hits the last thing we were talking about too about vendors, is FAIRE. It's FAIRE, and it's a wholesale website where there's a lot of different artists and big companies too. I mean, Wild Republic's on there, and as well as places you've never heard of. But you can get, as long as you set up in the beginning as a wholesale buyer, you can put in your nonprofit information so you don't get charged tax. And every single vendor on there has different minimum orders. And I just try to find one that's usually under $200 or, you know, whatever it might be as my first time purchasing with them to make sure the product sells well. But that's a great place to start if you don't want to get a whole bunch at once. Buy a few little things and see how they work. And FAIRE, in my experience, has worked out really well for us.
Kathleen or Anne Marie, any recommendations, suggestions? Nope. Okay. Friends of Rachel Carson in Maine is just beginning to plan their nature store in a newly renovated headquarters opening next year, and they plan to try to stock their shelves with Maine-made products as best we can. They're wondering if others have a similar criteria of supporting local craftspeople or business owners.
You know, we do, Ding Darling, we do try to support Florida-based businesses and even, you know, primarily Southwest Florida, certainly with the artisans and products. Absolutely.
Yeah, we try and support local vendors too. And one thing I like to do is go to crafts fairs and places like that to see what people have, what they're selling, talk to them. And the first thing is, do they sell wholesale? And then possibly get business cards from them, and then work with them on possibly having them as a vendor in the store.
Thanks. Okay, do you use a volunteer scheduling sign-up app like Sign Up Genius, or do you have other ways of getting volunteers scheduled?
I use Sign Up Genius. There may be better ones, but that's what we're using for now.
we're very old school. We just put a calendar on the wall and everybody signs up, and mostly the people who work Tuesday morning with, you know, Mary Beth over here, they want to work with Mary Beth every, you know, Tuesday morning. So we're pretty lucky that way.
Okay. Julia, any comments on that?
We had a separate list or a separate calendar from the Refuge, but when it's slower in the months like now, we usually only have one person there. So we kind of have the Refuge doing a calendar. I was really hoping Anne-Marie was going to have some kind of fancy system she could all share with all of us.
Go back to the calendar.
Yeah, we have a paper calendar at the front desk and our volunteers sign up there. I do wish there was an easier way to do that, but that's what we do too, a paper calendar.
Well, the sign up Genius is pretty good, and it's free. And if you want to pay, then you can get fewer ads on the system, but it puts it out there so that people can add their name, you know, from home or whatever, or from their cell phone. And then I go and look at the calendar online to see who signed up. And so it makes it easier to know, not just at the store, but you can check it from home. And people can see where other people have signed up, so they can choose to work with someone else or cover another shift. And then when we have special events that we're going to need a volunteer for, I put that as a separate line so that they can sign up for the event also.
Okay, thank you. This is an interesting one. Since AI is taking over our phones, we've not been selling reference books such as Sibley's. Are you having the same problem in your store?
I don't think so. If we are, I'm not aware of it.
Anybody else? No?
No, we
Okay.
don't seem to be, and we try to get them signed where we can. Even if it's sending out a little book page, having that signed, and then we can put it in ourselves. So we offer something different.
Okay. Lorna put in a whole list of suppliers, those of you who are looking for supplies. Another question from Tom: do you set up consignment agreements with artists?
No, we don't do consignment.
Okay. How about Anne-Marie? How about you? How do you handle yours?
We do a small amount of consignment. It's very hard to track unless you really keep track of it in the payment plan. But I think anything that you bring in the store, you have to have a signed agreement. We went through the hurricane. You know, it wasn't necessarily from the store, but we had other events where people brought fashions that were made of trash, and all of a sudden they went from being trash and fashion to being very valuable when they thought they were lost. Luckily, nothing was lost. It was high enough that it escaped. But you do need to develop something to have a signed agreement in place.
Okay. Julia, any?
We did do some consignments in the past, but we found it was difficult to keep track of all that. So if we want something in the store, we buy it outright. And if not, we just don't do that.
Okay. Anne-Marie, here's a question for you. Are your donations of fine art that you resell, or are they used, or are they original creations that an artist is hoping you will help publicize by selling it?
By and large, they have been fine art pieces. You know, all fine art is kind of used if it's been on somebody's wall. And, you know, like we had a couple of Chihuly vases that were donated to us, things like that have been really big high-end pieces, but we've had smaller pieces also. It's usually not an artist who wants to promote their work. It's more we go out, we do art exhibitions in our auditorium, and so we sell those pieces through the nature store, but it's us selecting the artist in that particular case.
Okay, thank you. Question for Julia. Do you have Square integrated with QuickBooks, and are you the person who handles the US sales tax for your online sales?
We do use QuickBooks, but it's I manually, it's not linked over to QuickBooks to do it itself. I input the information from Square into QuickBooks for the nature store, and Square calculates the sales tax for me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay. We don't have a web page. Is there a way to connect with Facebook to sell online?
So I have not used it without being connected to Square, because in Square you can click a few different options for where you want your store items to show up, like Google, and Facebook is on there too. So you can do a store through Facebook. I'm just not, it's because it's linking it to my online store through Square, but I think you can do it separately. I have never done it exclusively through Facebook to sell things on there, but I think you can. You might just have to look into that a little further.
Okay. Tom, I need to ask you, we've got 5 minutes left. We've got a ton more questions. Do you want to make your end of session announcements? And then if our presenters are willing to hang on for a little while, we can go through some more questions.
Yeah, that'd be great if everyone's willing. If we've got a lot of questions, let's keep rolling. So I was going to say thanks to all our 3 panelists. It's been great so far, and it will continue. There are a couple of announcements. I just want to make sure everyone knows. The webinar topic for next month in October will be fundraising and some of the novel ways that different friends groups have found to do some fundraising. That'll be Wednesday, October 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern. A reminder that tonight at 7:30 Eastern, the Refuge Association is broadcasting their annual award ceremony, and that's a Zoom link, and you shouldn't have any trouble finding that Zoom link if you're interested in attending that. Our friends share session, which are kind of the just a chat session, a Zoom chat session with different friends members. We had one last night, and our next one will be Thursday, October 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's those are my 3 announcements. So let's dig back into the okay.
Oh, Joan may have an announcement. Joan may possibly have something she wants to talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and I saw somebody else wearing the same t-shirt, that we have started the Get Out the Vote campaign, trying to encourage people to encourage their membership, friends, and everyone else to get out and vote. And as you do so, please research who's going to be able to best support both the refuge system and the hatchery system. I will put in the chat the link to a kit, because you can get the t-shirts. I'll do a little merchandising here. Stickers. I support refuges. You know, this is our what do we call it? The blue check mark?
Flying check mark.
The flying check mark, yes. So like I said, we're trying to encourage all friends to use these materials, customize them for your own particular situation, and encourage people to get out the vote and think about what's going to be best for the refuge system and the hatchery system. So I will put that in the chat. Okay.
Thanks, Joan. Julia and Anne Marie and Kathleen, are you able to stay on for a few more minutes? There are still a bunch of questions down here that I haven't gotten to yet.
Yes.
Yeah, I can do about another 15
okay.
minutes.
All right. Please hang on if you can stay with us, and if you have to get off, please, we'll look forward to seeing you tonight and next week or next month at the next webinar and at the Friends Share. So next question for Julia. Do you encounter many issues with people wanting to return or exchange items ordered online? And if so, how do you handle that?
Not too often. There's been a time or two, but if they're willing to send it back, we will send them a replacement. It kind of goes on a case-by-case basis and what they bought, if we'll make them pay shipping to get it back to them, or if as long as they return the item, send it back. A lot of times I suggest to people, to bring it in if they're nearby and find the size that they want. That's happened a few times if they were local, or yeah, next time I'm there, I'll exchange it. But actually shipping a replacement to them because of a sizing issue, it's not usually worth it to people when they have to pay to ship it back to us, so they keep it. It hasn't been a huge problem.
Okay, thank you. Are most of your online sales coming from out of state, or are they locals?
Most are nearby. We're pretty close to the Michigan border, so we get a lot of sales from Michigan and Ohio. But like I said before, it's kind of fun when you see orders for random things in all different states. So we do ship all over. It's pretty random what comes in and where it's going.
Okay, thank you. There's some information in the chat about charges for sales tax online if you're interested in looking at that. Friends of Turnbull posted some good information about their store also. We ask a question when people check out, how did you hear about the nature store online? I think that's a great idea too, so that you know how people are finding out about you. Yes, the chat transcript will be sent to the people who are on the call for the person who asked that question. Patuxent does count shop volunteer hours. They ask for separate counts if the person also volunteered in other capacities. That referred to that earlier question. I'm skipping down because again, there's some lists of suppliers. Please ask attention. Oh, and we already did that. Okay, do you have a standard markup? Do you have a standard markup? Yeah, Kathleen?
Yes, we do. We just most of the time just double the price. And in some items, we feel like it's more important that we sell these items, and so we don't charge as much for them. So not everything is automatically doubled, but most everything.
Okay.
For us, we do minimum double. Books are an exception because they've already got prices marked in the back, and sometimes they're 30–40%. But we have to include shipping because that's a huge cost. So probably double plus a little bit.
And Julia?
Same with us, usually 50%. But there's a lot of items like from the local vendors that I don't upcharge that much just because it doesn't always work out that way with the local artists, that they're able to give it to us at at such a good wholesale price like some of those bigger companies are.
Okay, thank you. Polly wants to know, what are your common credit terms for vendors?
Some of them are 30 days, some of them are 90 days. Some of them want the money before they ship. Some take a credit card and they want it right away. It just varies on the vendors.
Okay.
Yeah,
any other comments on that?
Same with ours. I like to pay up front if I can on a credit card because we do get like cash back or Amazon reward points and things like that with our credit card. And 30 days, you don't get much interest anyway, so we try to prepay as much as we can.
Okay. Do you sell items other places than the Refuge, like festivals or other compatible events?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Do you sell items other places besides at your store or on the Refuge? Do you go to other events where you sell things?
No. Well, yes, we do. We'll go to there was a Refuge close to us that was having an anniversary, and we went and took items to sell. And there's a lavender festival in Albuquerque, and we take items to that. So there's several events that we sell items at.
And Anne Marie or Julia, how about you?
We do occasionally. We have a speaker series that's too large for our auditorium, and when we have to go to an off-site area, we do. Primarily, it's their books that we handle, but we always include a lot of gifts and things along the side.
Okay.
We do too. If we have a fundraising event that's actually on a boat, and that's been a fun one where we bring select merchandise and sell it on for that fundraiser. We have a separate little mini register that we can use to check people out. It takes credit card. You can even print them a little receipt, and so that's been really, really handy. Even when we get busy, we don't really need 2 registers all year round, but during the birding festival in the spring, we could use probably 10. So it's just nice to have that extra system to be able to mobily go, out front if we're doing a plant sale out front, or to take it with us to an event. It is really nice to be able to have that.
Okay, thank you. What kind of insurance do you carry?
I'm not sure because the executive director handles that and our accountant.
Okay,
I'll
Anne-Marie
throw
or
that.
Julia?
Same here. I'm not sure exactly, but I know the store merchandise. We keep a record of approximately how much that's valued at, and that's sent over in our accounting information and covered in our insurance.
Yeah, ours is bundled in with our liability insurance, and it covers all of our merchandise in case of a loss.
Okay. It seems to me we've got a few people who are hanging on here, and I'm guessing it's because they want a specific question answered. Let's have you raise your hand. You know how to do that if you go down and click on the React, there's a place where you can raise your hand, and we can get your questions, hopefully get your questions answered. While we're doing that, I'm still scrolling down here. Anne Marie, how do you handle sales of art exhibition items on Refuge property, or did I misunderstand? We have an exhibit gallery, but have been told that exhibitors aren't allowed to sell on Refuge property without a special use permit.
You can't sell on their property, but we do have a nature store located within the visitor center, which is like the Friends group area. And we can sell, just like we sell other items, we sell it within the store. So when we have an exhibit, we had the Hotman brothers, everyone knows from the duck stamp, we had their artwork. You would put a number 1 through however many there are, 15. And then when people come into the store, you can show them the piece. You walk them into the store, you have a book. It has a photo of the piece, and then you say number 1 is X amount of dollars, and then you can sell it in the store and then deliver to them.
Okay, thank you. Miwa, is that Rochelle? Or somebody different?
Hi, it's me. There's 2 people from Miwa today.
Okay.
My question, I know you'll get to it eventually in the chat, is for Julia. I know you said that you use SCORE to calculate the tax, but my question is related to all of the individual U.S. state tax filings. To do the actual submission of the tax, are you paying SCORE to do that, or do you use a sales tax service for U.S. filings?
So we only have to pay the state of Ohio. Somebody else kind of answered it pretty good. There's minimums for each state and for sales tax. So as long as we don't go over that threshold, which we don't because we don't sell that high a volume online, you don't have to report it to that state. So the only monthly sales tax we actually prepare, we do that ourselves. We run a quick report in QuickBooks, pop it into the state of Ohio's website, and pay our sales tax each month. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
It does, and I am familiar with the minimums, and I was wondering if you had exceeded that. So, so thank you.
Maybe Anne Marie has, but we have not.
Okay. How often do you do a physical inventory?
We do a big one at the end of the year. Well, before the end of the year. After the Christmas sales kind of go out, before we start a new calendar year, we'll do a really big inventory after the holidays, so that the visitor center is usually pretty quiet anyway. I do one around this time of year too, because our busy season's about done, and it just kind of helps me update our website so that for sales for Christmas and things like that, inventory is pretty settled. So we do a mini one halfway through the year and a really big official one at the end of the year.
Okay.
We did one about a month ago, and it was because there was an organization that the employees get paid to volunteer somewhere, and there was a group of them that they wanted to come volunteer with us, and what do we need? And so we did an inventory with them. And so that was good. We usually do one a year, and then if something comes up, we would do more.
We're one a year as well. In fact, we're doing it right now as we speak.
Okay. All right. There was someone put in a question about whether the presenter's contact information would be available. If you're willing to put your contact information out there so that people who have specific questions can contact you after the webinar, that would be great. And if you could include that in the package of information that folks get at the end of this webinar. Is that another question from Miwa?
It is, thank you. Julia, do you know which subscription level of Square that you are running? Because we're trying to figure out about switching, and one of the main goals is to make sure it can not only manage the inventory, but also unit costs, so that we could calculate unit costs when we do our physical inventory.
I know we pay $60 a month. There's a lot of add-ons, but I found that they really weren't worth it. We weren't using them, so we cut a lot of the add-ons that we were paying monthly for the website, specifically for different kind of. It just wasn't worth it. So we pay $60 a month, and that covers everything, as far as like the physical store and the online store. It's been enough for what we need it for.
And when you manage your inventory, are you able at the time of buying to be able to put the unit cost in, since you don't have it integrated with QuickBooks?
Yeah. Yep.
Not the sales price, the unit cost as far as what you paid for it.
Yes, that's all in there.
Okay.
I'll throw my email in here, and if you have specific questions, if you're shopping around Square, I'd be happy to talk with you outside of this and show you the back end of it. So if it would just answer more questions that you might
that'd
have.
be perfect, because we're debating about an online store. Our other store is quite busy, but I definitely would like to talk to you about the online store part. Thanks.
Okay. Anne-Marie, our friend's shop is inside the Refuge Visitor Center, but it is still considered Refuge property, as I understand it. Is your shop actually Friends property, not Refuge property?
No, we're within the Refuge building for sure.
Okay. Next, Friends share call. Tom, you answered that question. The link for ordering or information about ordering t-shirts is in the chat. I think I'm sorry if I skipped your question, and it's important. Please raise your hand and ask your question yourself. Joan, have you got a question or a comment, or both?
Just a comment, comment for you guys. So Amy made the suggestion that perhaps we create a Google form that goes out with the recording. So if people want to share vendors and additional information, such as your point of sale systems, some of the, answer some of the questions that came up. We will talk to Eden about doing that Google form, and then make sure that we share with all of you the results of that form. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Kathleen?
I had a question for Julia. You mentioned when you had offsite events that you had like a little register or something. I'd like to know more about that.
We bought it from Square. It's, I don't know what it's called exactly, but it's a portable, I'll look it up for you. Mm-hmm. But we bought it directly from Square. So you can use iPad or your phones. You don't have to buy anything from Square to use their point of sale system. But We did, just we thought the investment would be worth it for us, but you could use your own devices if you were a smaller refuge just starting out. You don't have to buy anything fancy, but we bought the register for our physical store, and then we have that little mobile one for our
Kathleen, I
so
was
I'll
gonna
find
say,
that.
we use Shopify as well. Kathleen, I was going to say we use Shopify as well. And we have a second iPad that we can set up a second pop-up store. You have to import some, you have to transfer some inventory over. Otherwise, it gets a little clunky at the point of sale when you're off-site. But Shopify does accommodate that pretty well, and it does work. You have to have like a hotspot for your Wi-Fi wherever you're at, but it works pretty well using Shopify's resources.
Right.
Randy, is that Matthew? Randy Emmer?
Yes, hi, I'm here. I'm from Great Swamp National Wildlife Refuge.
Oh, okay.
And our shop has been in existence 15 years. And the only thing that I was quite surprised that nobody has brought up, especially with the people on this call saying that they're either brand new or starting, is when you go to vendors to get wholesale, you must send them your incorporation papers and your state resale license before they will let you go into the wholesale store. So it's very important that the people on this call realize you can go into any of the websites and you're paying full market retail price. You have to be able to go into the wholesale store of each of these vendors. And I think especially for the startups, that's very, very important because they may not be aware of that.
Thank you. Kathleen, do you have another question? Your hand is still up.
Oh, no, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to be sure you didn't have something else. Okay, folks, I think I've covered most of the questions, and I'm sorry if I missed yours. There's really good information in the chat, lots of links, lots of suggestions, lots of ideas. If so when you get your recording and information about this webinar, if you want to go back and read through the chat, you'll find that there's a lot of good information there about today's topic. And with that, thank you very much. Tom, do you want to do a closeout again?
Yeah, I just want to again thank Julia, Kathleen, Anne Marie very much for your time and preparing for this webinar. Very valuable. I think everyone found it, and we'll probably do another Nature Store webinar down the road sometime. But anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.